One of the citizens that's been in all the meetings would like to speak. So let's go ahead and get Joe up here real quick. Joe, if you can give your name and address for the record, please. He might be able to provide more clarity than we can provide.
Maybe. I don't. It's kind of frustrating because we've been hearing all the information and all the rules from everybody, and we know you guys can't talk, but thank God I'm not covered by it, so I can answer hopefully some questions. But as far as the June thing, I don't think there's any way that could happen based on just the timeline and getting people involved and drawing the districts. That would be a crazy amount of work because you'd have to have districts drawn under general law. You have to vote on the districts as they will be applied. They have to be on the ballot. So they have to be established, agreed upon by everybody. And as I heard the consultants say, lines always fail. Nobody likes voting on lines. You know, once you draw a line between a couple of neighbors, people vote against the maps. So I don't really have a dog in that fight as far as the charter or whether they go together, but it seems kind of a nightmare to make them joint and several at the same time. I mean, you're gonna have one, if you do it under one set of rules, it has to be under general law. There's only certain configurations you can have. And if you do it under a charter, then you get to draw the rules. So there's reasons why you might want to keep them together, but I know there's a lot of sentiment to set them apart. If you're going to do it apart, you have to do it under general law, and it has to be done on a certain configuration, certain types of councils, only a certain number of people on the council. The mayor has to have certain duties. There's a lot of complications to make them, well, pick from column A, pick from column B like a buffet. It doesn't really work that way, at least from what I heard in it. So I'm not sure if I've clarified anything at all, and if there's any questions you think I might be able to answer.
Well, from your perception, because I think you're more of a disinterested third party, even though you're interested, from what you're saying, and kind of I think saying better than what I was saying, was the fact that by doing the charter, you have a little bit more flexibility in how the configuration is done from this council standpoint.
You can basically write your own form. You could have any number of council people as a council. You can have your own form of mayor. You can have a rotating mayor. You can have an at-large mayor. You can set it up however you'd like to set it up because you're writing your own rules. Otherwise, you're governed by the general law as to how you establish your districts. You know, as far as how the council is, constructed. So if there's, I forget the numbers, but it had to be 5 or 7 council members. You know,
odd numbers, yes. Yeah,
odd numbers only. So.
Or if you do, I think what you're referring to also under the general law concept, if you have a mayor elected at large, then you're limited to 4, 6, or 8 districts, for instance.
Yeah.
Or odd numbers if you don't have a mayor.
Yeah, they have their own formulas for how it has to be under general law. And that the general law wards would have to be, what was I going to go with it? A general law election, you have to vote on the map. So it would have to be done. You'd have to have all the public meetings. Everything would have to be out in the open and decided sometime in late winter or something like that.
It would actually, technically, I know that deadline too. Yeah, you would have to have everything done at the latest date. You could adopt your ordinance around March 2nd. So you'd have to have everything done by that point to have it on a June election.
Yeah, and as the consultant was saying, is that to get it on the ballot in November
it's a big push to do it for November.
He said that's an ambitious but doable project. You crank it back another 6 months. Obviously, there's no charter. There would be less work that way. But to put in all those meetings and to have the community involved would be pretty daunting.
And I think Joe's point, I hadn't even remembered that part of the conversation. To do the districts by itself with the lines drawn, it's much more problematic when it comes to an election time. That there have been problems with getting a district to pass, and then we're back in the quandary, are we then still violating the Voting Rights Act? So it's a catch-22. We want to comply, yet if the citizens don't vote for it because they don't like the lines, where if we do the charter way, is what he's suggesting, although I've suggested that he draw some preliminary lines just so people get an idea of what the districts might look like, but that once the charter/districts were approved, if they were done together in November of next year, then the lines then get drawn by the community for the districts. So then the districts are approved, and then the way that the lines are drawn are done again by the community, but there's no rush to do it because it's after the charter's approved.
Yeah, and you could decide the number of districts, how, how the mayor's seat is going to be structured, whether it be voting or non-voting. You could decide that in the charter, but not have the actual districts drawn.
That's true.
And then you could have community input later on to say, here's how here's where the lines are gonna be, and that I don't recall if that had to go to a separate vote, if the actual lines had to go to a vote then later, or
Yes, they would. Yeah, eventually the lines would, and the district boundaries would have to be voted on by the citizens eventually, yeah.
yeah.
Joe, I think you're making a very large assumption that the citizens are going to vote for the charter, okay?
Oh no, I'm not.
Well,
no,
okay.
yeah, I don't mean to represent that.
I got it that way, and if we disagree, that'll be the first. What if we did this? What if we did pass a ballot initiative, whether it be in November or it happened in June or whatever, to put on district/wards, okay? And then if the charter were to go forward, that would trump the other idea anyway, because it would be a brand new set of rules.
I don't know. The city attorney would have to draw those two things. That's why I assume that the language would be more complicated to do. You would have two separate ballot measures written to do the same process under two different sets of laws.
Yeah, I think that's probably theoretically possible. Yeah, it is. I was going to suggest.
I'm sure you have enough ink.
Yeah,
I'm sure you do.
I think that is. Again, we'd have to research to know for sure, but I believe that that's theoretically possible. That you could draft it that says if the charter passes, this is what they'd look like. If the charter doesn't pass, here's what the boundaries would look like.
That's how I assumed it was. That if you were going to do two separate things, that's how it would be. But I just thought it'd be more complicated. And my concern in that is that either way you do it, if you make it more complicated, the more likely it is that it's going to fail.
Right, and that was one of the things that we discussed,
'cause-
having a very long charter, because the entire charter has to be on the ballot, that a very long charter would then be problematic as well.
And,
See, my
and
way of
also-
thinking is we have to take care of the citizens of Corona. We have to listen to
Thank you.
them and
Thank you.
do what and react to do what I believe that they want us to do. So we have to do the right thing. That's why I'm saying let's put
But all the citizens did.
yeah, I
But
did say
listen.
all. Didn't I say all? Didn't I say all? Okay, good. Well, when I say the citizens, I mean everybody. Jeepers. Okay,
Go ahead.
thank
Sure.
you. I'm done.
I'm just up here just trying to help the two people that are out there because
You shared more than most of us knew.
I know
that's
it's
my
got to be
point
frustrating.
to you, Joe, is that this information about charters, you're providing things that are at that committee. And I stated at the beginning of these comments that I don't know much about the charter, and you're providing information. Other of my colleagues have provided information. That's why I was hesitant to vote on putting that right now on the ballot. So to go back to Dean, whether to make it two,
The way I first articulated it left it flexible for
yeah, I
you
would
to
do that.